call the meeting to order. Have some quick announcements. Our chair couldn't be here today, so I was asked to chair the meeting. At this time, I'd like to ask everyone to silence all electronic devices. Today is June 12th, 2024. In addition, if you like, I'm asking everyone to speak clearly into the microphone. Obviously, I wasn't doing that a couple minutes ago. It's important that we record all the information here today. And guests in the audience who have hearing issues, please speak to Lisa. If they cannot hear, we'll try to make arrangements for you. There'll be two opportunities to speak publicly for public comments. One on today's agenda will be for action items, and be end of the evening, end of the afternoon or morning, any general items. Anyone in attendance in person who wish to make public comments, please fill out a speaker card. They're available at the reception desk or at the table in the back. Card should be given to Lisa Smith. And at this time, I'd like to ask Commissioner Lee Constantine to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Constantine.
Let us all honor America by saying, I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Constantine. Commissioner Jana, would you be willing to give us an update on the Central Florida Commuter Rail Commission, please?
Yes, I'd be happy to. The CFCRC board met on Thursday, May 23rd at Link Central Station. The board approved the April 25th meeting minutes. The agency report to the board included the following items: an agency update that included celebrating Sunrail's 10th anniversary. Average daily ridership exceeds 4,500. It's actually 4,553 to be exact. This is an increase from the previous 3 years. The successful rollout of Sunrail's mobile ticketing app. Mobile ticketing, there has been 7,000 app downloads and 23% of current ticket sales are using the new application. We had an update on the final stages of the new ticket vending machines and a construction update of the DeLand station. That's moving along nicely, by the way. An update on feeder service ridership from Lynx and Voltran, as well as the operation phasing agreement. An update on the train schedule with phase 2 North coming on board. So after the DeLand station is operational for revenue service, Sunrail will maintain its current schedule. This means that Lynx will not have to change their schedule to accommodate the additional Sunrail service. The CFCRC then approved the Title VI plan and service and fare equity analysis. Title VI update showed that the current fare structure is equitable and that the expanded service to DeLand will increase mobility options for minority and low-income populations. There is no date certain yet for the DeLand station opening. The next meeting is June 27th, 2024, and that is my report.
Thank you, Commissioner. Would also like to congratulate two of our MetroPlan board members and other elected officials in our region for the Tri-County League of Cities 2024 Homeroom Heroes. Mayor Pat Bates from the city of Altamont and Commissioner Tony Ortiz from the city of Orlando. I don't see them here right now, but when they come back, if they are, I will recognize them. At this moment, we'll do a safety moment. Mike?
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. For June, we're going to be looking at Motorcycle Safety Month. And big picture here is that over 200 serious or fatal motorcycle crashes occur in our area each year, nearly 50 of those being fatal. Not surprisingly, motorcycle crashes are more likely to be serious if they're a single vehicle, right? You don't have that cage around you. So, 30% of the KSIs are single vehicle for motorcycle compared to 17% for cars and trucks. There's a lot of concern about some of the more egregious behavior that we see among a small number of motorcyclists, excessive speed, and other reckless behavior. So I thought I'd look at the data and see, well, what percentage of our serious and fatal crashes involve that kind of behavior? And you see, it's really not all that different between motorcyclists and auto and truck drivers. And I might note also that for that column for motorcyclists, those can also include crashes where it's actually the auto or truck driver who's speeding or driving aggressively. It's just that a motorcyclist was involved in that crash. But moving on to what really is the primary issue for motorcyclists, when we look at angle and left turn crashes, that's nearly a third of fatal and serious crashes for motorcyclists. That bumper sticker that you see out there, look twice, save a life, it really does mean something. You know, we have a tendency, if we glance quickly to our left to check for oncoming traffic, we can literally look right through and right past a motorcyclist because of their narrow profile and their speed. So really, you know, take your time when you're checking for traffic. And if you do see a motorcyclist, take extra time, because you can sometimes be fooled by that profile, and they can be moving faster than you think they are. But something that might be a little more surprising is that another nearly 20% of serious crashes for motorcyclists involve a rear end. And it's typically the motorcyclist that's hitting the other vehicle from behind. And this is because motorcycles actually need more stopping distance than automobiles. A less skilled motorcyclist needs twice the braking distance of a car. A more proficient motorcyclist can match that of a car, but that's a skill that you really need to maintain. So the message for motorcyclists is give yourself more following distance and stopping distance, and try to work on those braking skills. Also wanted to do a follow-up of a question that we had last month about visitor involvement in our crashes. And so we were able to look at that data for the 5 years for our Vision Zero plan. And you can see here that 63% of our crashes involve someone from the metro area. Another 13% are from Florida, but outside of our metro area. And I'd say the lion's share of those are from adjacent counties. And then when we look at states outside of Florida, 3%, and for those outside of the US, only 1%. So if we think about roughly 500,000 visitors here on a given day, visitors are really quite underrepresented as crash participants. And this is true whether or not we're talking about the person that caused the crash or otherwise involved. And then of course, there's also always unknown for hit and run crashes. They're at 20%. So that concludes my safety moment, but I just also want to mention this is the 100 days of summer. Talk to your teens about driving safely. This is that time of year where they are most likely to be out having fun and behind the wheel. So keep that in mind. And that concludes my safety moment this morning.
This time move to Executive Director Gary Hutman for announcements.
Good morning, Vice Chair Delary and board members. Thank you, Commissioner Delary, for filling in and chairing this morning's meeting on pretty short notice. So I appreciate that. Just a brief word on our apportionment plans. I've been talking about that at the last few board meetings. And thank you, everyone, for getting those interlocal agreements executed in a timely manner. But we are still waiting and are hopeful that we'll receive the letter from the governor's office very soon that will then allow the additional Orange County Commissioner and the city of St. Cloud to be full voting members. So we'll make sure you're aware of that when that happens. This morning, we do not have any board alternates, but we do have Lorene Bobo here representing the Florida Department of Transportation in place of Secretary Tyler. So thank you, Lorene, for being here. But I would like to note that Commissioner Grebe is online listening into the meeting this morning, as well as Sean Germolis from the Kissimmee Airport. We'll be holding our virtual public meeting for the new Transportation Improvement Program Tuesday, June 18th, and you'll be hearing more about that from Jason Sartorio in his presentation this morning. I've also mentioned the last few meetings about the greenhouse gas emissions work and the thought that we were going to have to start monitoring that and developing performance measures and targets for that. But then we heard that there were two courts, a Texas court and a Kentucky court, that ruled in favor of the states, and that we would no longer have to be setting those targets and monitoring it. But we did hear since our last board meeting that the US DOT and Federal Highway Administration have appealed the Texas court ruling. So stand by on that. If anything changes, as I've said before, we're prepared to monitor that as would be required. And so we're just kind of in a holding pattern for now. So I want to also congratulate Mayor Bates and Commissioner Ortiz on their recognition from the Florida League of Cities. I mentioned this at your last board meeting, but worth calling attention to it again. Congratulations to the regional TSMO team for receiving an award at the 30th Annual Future of the Region Awards for Transportation and Mobility. And this came from the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. And the group that's involved in that is all of the MPOs throughout the I-4 corridor from Daytona over to Tampa, 10 MPOs working together to advance technology within the I-4 corridor. And from our staff, Eric Hill has been leading that effort and doing a great job doing that. So congratulations to them again. The supplemental folders that you have at your seats include some additional information this morning that did not make it into the agenda workbooks. The information includes a flyer that promotes our Vision Zero speaker series. We've had recently had two very successful events. The first on May 23rd with Charles Brown, and the second on June 4th with Melissa Wandal. Tomorrow is another event, this one with Dan Burden, and it should be equally as interesting. Then you also have the Dangerous by Design summary memo. This memo was emailed to you all a couple of weeks ago, but I included a copy in your supplemental folders, as well as a fact sheet to accompany that. And then finally, it includes an announcement of this year's Mobility Week from Secretary Perdue. Commissioner DeLaury, that concludes my announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Tubman. This time we'll move to DOT. Lorraine Bobo.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me here today. I'm happy to represent FDOT's District 5. I've got two main topics that I'd like to chat a little bit about. First is hurricane readiness. As you're probably aware, hurricane season did start on June 1st. At FDOT, we're preparing year round, right? We want to learn from last year's season and make sure that our processes and our planning is in place for hurricane season, which actually doesn't just fall under hurricanes. We recently responded to some tornadoes that hit up in North Florida, and we responded in a very similar nature as we would with our hurricane response. We are ready for road clearing, debris pickup, storm recovery. You know, we want to make sure that those first responders can get to where they're going. And so sometimes I like to call our folks pre-responders, right? The fire trucks, the police cannot get to where they need to go if the roads are blocked. So we are ready to step in for that. You know, over the years, we have really refined how we respond to emergencies. I've been with the department for 25 years now, and I've seen it evolve over the years, and we're pretty good at it. And we're pretty proud of that as well. All of our employees are part of an emergency. It's not just the folks that you see out on the ground, you know, picking up the debris. There's a lot of folks back at the office that are making sure that contracts are in place, that, you know, the right folks are being coordinated with, and all of those different things. And we pride ourselves on that. Then just as a reminder to you and your families, and this is what we tell our employees as well, is take care of your family first. Make sure that they have what they need to be safe. You have enough prescriptions, you know, all those types of things in place so that when something does occur, you're ready and not like, man, I should have had that ready to go. So with that, play our first video. Thank you. All right, next I'd like to talk about our Central Florida Safety Strategic Plan. If you have not received a copy, I did bring some copies here today. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that plan. So this idea of a safety strategic plan came up a few years ago now when the Office of Safety was created, and we had all of these different ideas. We knew a lot of our partners were doing things, and we were just kind of trying to wrap our head around what direction do we want to head. And so over the last 9 months, we have been holding workshops with our Central Florida partners. The one for MetroPlan Orlando area was at the end of January. I know there was quite a few of you that were able to attend, and we appreciated that. This plan is made up of not just FDOT's thoughts, but everybody in Central Florida. All 9 of our counties, all 5 of our MPOs and TPOs were represented. It is our plan. It is Central Florida's plan, not just what we at FDOT would like to accomplish. And why are we doing this? In 2023, we lost over 730 people on our collective roadways in Central Florida in our 9 counties. That's a lot of people whose lives were lost, whose families were affected. And then I don't know the exact number, but several thousand were injured, right? And they will live with those injuries for the rest of their life, and it'll affect the rest of their life. So this is why we wanted to do what we're doing, bringing everybody together, a collective unit moving in the same direction together. FDOT has Target Zero, your communities have Vision Zero. We have a lot of similarities, and we can, we don't need to necessarily duplicate each other's efforts, but we might be able to amplify those efforts if we're doing it all together. So I think that there's a copy of the plan in your packet. I can also send it to you electronically. You can also get a hard copy here. It is going to be a living document. We are going to evaluate it throughout every year. What do we want to work on? Where do we want to see our future going together? And to help with that, we are creating a steering committee, which will be made up of folks like yourself from around our 9 counties, helping us decide as a Central Florida region, what do we want to focus on this next year, right? Then we'll do check-ins. How are we doing? Are we accomplishing what we wanted to accomplish? Do we need to keep working on those, or are there new things that we want to work on? So this document, yes, it's got the May 2024 date on it, but every year we're going to update that and as a region on where we want to go with that ultimate goal of getting to zero together. So I really appreciate you guys letting me share a little bit about that. You're going to hear about the Central Florida Safety Strategic Plan continuously throughout the year. This is not just a static document that we're going to just let sit. Mike stole my thunder because I was going to talk about the 100 deadly days of summer, but I think it's worth mentioning again. I was reading a fatality report last day or two for a 19-year-old that died in a crash. I don't think that they were wearing their seatbelt. So it's just a reminder to our nieces, our nephews, our children. My boys aren't quite there yet, and I'm not really ready for them to be there yet for driving, but it can be scary out there, and they don't have that experience that we have behind the wheel of paying attention to everything and thinking about, hey, putting my seatbelt on could save my life. Telling my friend, hey, it's not cool to not wear your seatbelt. I want you to go home tonight if we are involved in a crash. Those types of conversations, they might be difficult to have, but they can save a life. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bobo. If you could send that report to Gary Hutman, and then Gary can forward it to each one of the board members, make it a lot easier.
Okay.
I know you just spoke about the safety summit. Commissioner Moore was part of the panel discussion. Commissioner Moore, is there anything you'd like to discuss with us from your experience?
Well, it was really exciting to see how many people attended the event from particularly on the engineering and the municipality and the county side. And I was honored to represent all of you on the panel. And you could tell we were all kind of in the beginning stages of little tips and ideas and action to try to reduce fatalities in our own district. But it was really eye-opening to really hear some of the other ideas from whether they were mayors or county commissioners or what have you from around the region. So I found it very helpful, and I hope as we develop longer, we'll have breakout sessions and really be able to train us on some of these novel, innovative ideas.
Yes, and I was reminded that I actually have a video about the Central Florida Safety Summit. Thank you very much. It was held on May 17th, and we had over 228 people attend from all 9 of our counties, all 5 of our MPO TPOs, I think 21 different cities and towns. We had law enforcement there. We had fire departments there. It was a really, really great day bringing everybody together, and watch the video.
This has been a lot of work coming together to produce this event, to help us fulfill this vision of creating and then walking, delivering, implementing a safety strategic plan for Central Florida.
It is really so wonderful to see all of you in this room today. We had this vision a few years ago of just bringing everybody together with a united effort, and here we are.
Every single effort that takes place to try to focus on getting to target zero is worth recognizing, and we know that it's going to take the efforts of many, many, many people, so thank you for everybody that has been a part of that to this point.
Vision Zero is an international movement to reach zero traffic fatalities. We collectively have to believe that we can get there, that we could do this.
With Joshua's tragedy and his death, he is going to be saving lives in this community.
Every single day, your personal and work efforts are aimed at saving lives. Lives of our friends and family, but also the lives of those we've never met. So thank you. Keep up the great work.
See how DOT's operations, how we do things across the agency, will start to fundamentally change to align with these ideas that are included in this plan. So I'm looking forward to that.
Safety begins with me, begins with every single one of you. Thank you.
And again, thank you, Commissioner Moore, for representing us. I'd like to now go to Ms. Smith for a confirmation quorum.
Arrington, Bates, Blackwell, Bonilla, Castano, Constantine, Gomez Cordero.
Here.
Delari,
Here.
Demmings, Dyer, Dowlis.
Here.
Good. Grebe.
Online.
Janer, Moore,
Here.
Nelson,
Here.
Scott, Smith,
Here.
Ortiz, Uribe, Wilson,
Here.
Woodruff.
Here.
That concludes the roll call, and we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. I'd like to go back to Mr. Hutman for agenda review. Mr. Hutman?
Yes, Vice Chair Delara, there are no changes to the agenda this morning, but I do want to draw your attention to the presentations that you'll be hearing. This is the time of year when we take our TIP and our prioritized project list through all of the committees as well as the board for a detailed preview. And then next month, we'll be asking for your approval of what you hear today. And I remind you of that because next month we agreed to we're starting early at 8 o'clock for the July meeting. And we've also agreed to keep that meeting very focused on the business that we need to accomplish. So we'll get you out of here in 30 to 45 minutes, probably next meeting. We're also
Gary, not to interrupt you, what time again?
starting at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. We're also presenting the Vision Zero Safety Action Plan to you this morning. You've had presentations on that, I think probably at every meeting since August. But this is really wrapping that up. And so you will not be having a presentation on it in July. We don't meet in August, and you'll be asked for your approval in September. So I just wanted to make you aware of the presentations that you hear this morning are all very important and will lead eventually to the adoption of those documents. So with that, we can proceed, Commissioner Delara.
Thank you, Mr. Hutman. And just for clarification, I know that we normally start our meetings at 9. The next meeting is going to be at 8. Can we just put a notice out the week before to make sure that everyone's reminded it starts at 8?
Yes, we'll do that.
Commissioner Delory,
Yes.
what time does the next meeting start again?
8 o'clock. I just want to make sure.
And why are we having to do that? Is it something about Orange County?
Budget, our apologies.
We're all working together, Commissioner. All working together. Okay, let's move on to the agenda. Now we're going to committee reports. The Municipal Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Municipal Advisory Committee met last week on June 6th. MAC approved our May meeting minutes. We then recommended approval on the following items: FDOT amendment to the fiscal year 2024-2028 TIP, amendment to the 2045 MTP. MAC received 3 presentations. First, we received a preview of the fiscal year 2025-29 Transportation Improvement Program. We've also received a 2030-2040 prioritized project list, and we received an update on Regional Vision Zero Action Plan. Our next meeting is June 27th, and this concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions any questions online? Do you have any hands raised? Seeing none.
No hands raised online, Mr. Chairman.
We'll now move on to the Community Advisory Committee.
Vice Chair and the board. Community Advisory Committee met on May 29th.
And, my apologies, thank you. The Community Advisory Committee met on May 29th, welcomed a new member appointed by Seminole County. CAC recommended approval of the TIP amendment. One member familiar with the area commenting that 2 of the projects were badly needed, would make travel safer. Members heard previews of the draft TIP and project, the PPL. Some members observed that projects and the TIP seem disproportionately geared towards highways at the expense of other modes and should be more multimodal. Members also questioned some of the terms used in the planning documents, since many of the terms may not apply to current transportation, such as bike lanes versus shared use paths and accommodations for using micromobility devices. A presentation on Vision Zero brought members up to date on the Safety Action Plan activities. Members expressed support for the initiative, setting a target year of 2050 to eliminate traffic deaths and serious injuries. Although some lamented that we expected it to take another 26 years to reach that goal. Members also expressed interest in hearing recordings of the recent Vision Zero Safety Speaker Series events. Next CAC meeting will be June 26th of this year. That concludes my report, sir.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Any hands raised?
No hands raised.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to Technical Advisory Committee.
Good morning, board members and chair. I'm Joshua DeVries, chair of the Technical Advisory Committee. TAC met 2 weeks ago on May 31st. Like the other advisory committees, TAC met in person with a physical quorum present. Our action items, all of which were unanimously approved and recommended for approval, include the April 26th board meeting minutes, amendment to the fiscal year 2024-2028 TIP, and amendment to the 2045 MTP. Also, like the other advisory committees, we received presentations on the Vision Zero status update, as well as the 2050 MTP status update. There were 2 TAC-only presentations, which included the preview of the fiscal year 2025-2029 TIP, preview of the 2030 through 2040 PPL. And there were no public comments made nor submitted. And then our next meeting is June 28th at 10 a.m. This concludes my report.
Any questions from the board? Any hands raised?
No hands raised.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to the Transportation System Management and Operation Advisory Committee.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. The TISMO Advisory Committee met on May 31st, 2024. Neither I nor the vice chair were available for that meeting. So pursuant to the TISMO committee bylaws, the committee made a motion for Shad Smith with the city of Longwood to chair the meeting. I want to thank the committee, Eric Hill, and especially Shad Smith for stepping up in my family's time of need. The items that were approved at that meeting include the minutes for April 26, 2024. We also approved the MetroPlan Orlando staff's request to amend the 2024-2028 TIP, which included a resurfacing for US 441 from Wadsworth Road to Lake County line, a passing lane for State Road 60, Blanket Bay Slough to Peavine Trail, as well as a PD&E study for the Florida's Turnpike from State Road 70 to State Road 60. We also approved staff's request to amend the 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. There were also 3 presentations. The first one was by Mr. Sartorio, MetroPlan staff on the TIP annual update. The second presentation was a preview of the PPL annual update by Mr. Slade Downs. The last presentation was by Brian Humiani with CFX staff for the State Road 516 Lake Orange Expressway project, very important project for Lake and Orange there. The next TISMO meeting will be held on June 28th at 8:30 a.m. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Any hands raised?
No hands raised.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to public comments for action items. Is there anything that's on the agenda for action? If you're in person, please fill out a speaker form. And if you are virtual, please raise your hand. This time we'll go to the consent agenda, A through C. Direction from the board.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Now move on to other action items. First, we have the approval of the amendment of the fiscal year 2024-2025 TIP. We'll have staff present.
Morning, Chairman and board members. This morning I have 3 TIP amendments for you. Additional information on these amendments is located in tab 2 of your agendas. First amendment was for a resurfacing project on US 441 from Wadsworth Road to Lake County line in Orange County. The amendment will increase construction funding in fiscal year 2025 due to cost increases for materials. The second amendment is to add eastbound and westbound passing lanes on State Road 60 from Blanket Bay Slough to Peavine Trail in Osceola County. The amendment will increase construction funding in fiscal year 2025 due to construction cost increases. And the final amendment is a system-wide turnpike project being added to the TIP. It's for a PD&E study to widen the turnpike, and the limits of the PD&E study are from State Road 70 in St. Lucie County to State Road 60 in Osceola County. As I mentioned earlier, you have some additional information regarding these amendments located in tab 2 of your agendas. That being said, unless there are any questions, we are asking for your vote of approval of the amendments. Thank you.
Question from the board. Commissioner Arrington?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quick, just obviously looking at our cost increases, has DOT done a percentage breakdown annually of what those cost increases are looking like to DOT? I only bring this up because on our CFX board, every month we have continuous cost increases in materials, and just trying to understand what we're looking at across the state in those, if there's any information.
There has been quite a bit of an analysis done. I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but that is something that we look at to adjust our estimates as we're moving forward, understanding what has been happening, what may be coming forward.
Mr. Chair, Lorraine, if we could get that information.
Okay.
At whenever you get a chance would be, because I only bring it up because obviously we're looking at our mobility fees across the region, and it'd be great to have some additional information from the state. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions from the board? Are there any hands raised?
No hands raised.
No hands raised. Direction for the board with a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, that's a roll call vote. Lisa?
Arrington. Blackwell.
Aye.
Castano. Constantine.
Yes.
Gomez Cordero.
Aye.
Delari.
Yes.
Dowless.
Aye.
Grebe.
Aye. Sorry. Yes.
Janer.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Smith. Wilson.
Yes.
Woodruff.
Aye.
Motion carry unanimously.
Thank you. And now move on to item B, which is the approval of the amendments to the 2045 Metro Transportation Plan.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Taylor Laurent, and I'll be sharing the proposed revisions to the 2045 MTP with you this morning. So jumping right in, our first item is an amendment to the Complete Streets project list to be able to split several of the projects, the 5 that are shown here on the screen, into multiple phases to better represent how they're planned to be implemented over the coming years. So the costs associated with each of those projects have been increasing. We've accounted for that over the past several years with our routine MTP amendments for those express reasons. So this change does not result in any changes to project cost feasibility, purely to split up those phases for implementation purposes for planning consistency. Going into item 2, the North Street Phase 1 project from Raymond Avenue to Palm Springs Drive in Seminole County is being advanced by the county using local funds. So for planning consistency, we are removing that project from our Complete Streets project list and moving it to Table 17, which is the locally funded Seminole County projects list. So there are no impacts to other project cost feasibility, though I did get a question about what does that mean for other projects on the list that were below the North Street Phase 1 project in priority. That means they move up on the list for cost feasibility purposes. Going into item 3, this is a modification to include the Forward Orlando Discretionary Safe Streets and Roads for All grant that the City of Orlando received not too long ago. That's being included for planning consistency purposes and does not impact any of our project cost feasibility. Item 4 is the addition of the Headwaters Trail from south of Nova Road to State Road 528. This is being requested to be added to our bicycle and pedestrians needs list by Osceola County staff. They're going to be pursuing some other funding opportunities for this specific trail. And one of the requirements for those other opportunities is that is included in our MTP for planning consistency purposes. So it's being proposed to be added to the bottom of our bicycle and pedestrian needs list as an unfunded need to be able to satisfy that requirement to unlock those opportunities for Osceola County staff. So with that change, there are no impacts to the existing project cost feasibility of items already on that list. Item 5 is a minor modification to revise the St. Andrews Trail project description to indicate its potential eligibility for Sun Trail program funding. You'll remember earlier this year, we made several edits to include that tag to let FDOT know which projects we think were eligible. And St. Andrews Trail was one that we missed at that time. So this is an administrative modification to include that tag. Going into item 6, this is for the Canoe Creek Road Cost Estimate Projects Update. So this specific project has seen a couple cost overages, but it is included on the Osceola County locally funded project list. So they've asked us to update those cost estimates to match and align with the latest information that they have and also their projected phase implementation. So with this administrative change, there are no impacts to project cost feasibility. And again, for Osceola County locally funded projects, they had a few other revisions that were requested to that particular list to revise the Kissimmee Park Road project limits to end at Cross Prairie Parkway, the removal of the Liberty Commons Boulevard from US 192 to Shady Lane project, because it's no longer consistent with their local comprehensive plan. So we're removing it from our list for planning consistency. And then the consolidation of the Neovation Way project from where it was erroneously listed as under 2 MTPIDs to consolidating it under 1. So really just removing duplication. And all of these edits under item 7 are on the Osceola County locally funded project list. So these are all their projects with local funds, so no impacts to our project cost feasibility. So as was mentioned during each of our committee reports, this amendment was approved through each of our committees, and we're asking for your recommendation of approval today, unless there are any questions. Thank you.
Any questions from the board? Are there any hands raised?
No hands.
See no hands raised. Action for a motion?
So moved.
Second.
The motion is second. Discussion? There's a roll call vote. Miss Lisa?
Arrington. Blackwell.
Aye.
Castano.
Aye.
Constantine.
Yes.
Gomez Cordero.
Aye.
Delari.
Yes.
Dowless.
Aye.
Grieve.
Aye.
Janer. Moore.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Smith.
Yeah.
Wilson.
Yes.
Woodruff.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. We now move on to item 11, which is information items for acknowledgement, A through P. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved. More.
Second.
The motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Now move on to other businesses presentation. We have A, which is Vision Zero Safety Plan Update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning again, everyone. We are closing in on the finish line for our Vision Zero plan. So your final update this month. You're going to be receiving the action plan in within a couple of weeks, and this is kind of a big overview picture of what to expect in it. You can see here the chapters laid out in addition to the usual executive summary outlining what the needs are for this plan, understanding how we got to this state with safety, what we've done as far as listening to the community and getting their input. There's a whole toolbox of strategies that we can use to bring to bear on the problem. And then really developing projects that we can then move through our regular process for implementation, and having just a generalized plan of action, not only for projects, but how we continue our planning process here at MetroPlan Orlando. And then ultimately also tracking everything, making sure that we are on target and achieving our goals. So within the executive summary, just basically, covering again, the need, the issues, how we track it, and then how we proceed, and then who all is going to be participating in that effort. The first chapter, getting into the policy issues, what are the core elements of a Vision Zero plan? What is the safe system approach? And what are the strategies that are key parts of that approach? In the second chapter, we get into our crash trends, such as who's involved, where are the crashes occurring, what are the characteristics of the roads where they happen, what are other contributing behaviors. And then ultimately, what's really important is developing a high injury network that we can focus on, as you've seen in past presentations, where we have a very small portion of our road network representing a high proportion of our crashes. Listening to the community, as you've heard in prior presentations. We've really been out there in all of your communities, getting feedback from the public. It's more than just that objective data that we need, but we also need that subjective, on the road experience that people have that can help to enrich that crash data. And keeping in mind also that this is not just our regional plan, but that we're concurrently developing your 3 county plans and municipal plans as well. And we're trying to make sure that they all dovetail and communicate with one another and are coherent with one another. Strategies. This is where we're really going to make our impact, and identifying the strategies that are going to be most effective. Everything ranging from the reducing the severe conflicts, which tend to be more challenging and more time consuming, to the easier, lower lift type of efforts that may not be as effective, but we need to have all of those and everything in between. And we do this not only in the engineering realm where we change the built environment, but also in the non-engineering realm where we're trying to communicate to all of our general public on how to behave on our roads, but also from a policy standpoint, not only what we do here in MetroPlan, but each of your respective jurisdictions. There are policies not only that have a bearing in how we design our roads, but also the surrounding land uses actually have an impact. So helping to give you all the guidance to make those sort of improvements so that we can have a holistic approach to our safety problem. The project development portion of this, identifying the network needs, which we've done by identifying the high injury network, looking at those high injury network areas and seeing are there already planned improvements and what might need to be done additionally. What are the potential countermeasures for those corridors? And then from that, we can prioritize the projects and bring them into an action plan. This is one example of just one of those corridors with John Young Parkway from Colonial down to Orange Center Boulevard, where we're going to look at the corridor not only holistically from the standpoint of things like speed and lighting, but specifically at particular intersections where we're seeing crash problems and what specific countermeasures might be necessary there. So each of those is then a potential project to move forward through our process. And we prioritize these by looking at, first and foremost, the safety history. I mean, because we want to put our effort where the crashes are happening, but also looking at areas that are disadvantaged from a transportation standpoint. We know those areas are very likely to be disproportionately affected by severe crashes, giving some weighting to the safety benefit of the project, to the regional benefit, and then the timeline. We want it, while the big projects are important, we also want to expedite the smaller ones that we can fit in. So if something can be achieved quickly, we want to give some benefit to that as well. So the plan of action, it is to reach 0 by 2050, 0 fatalities and serious injuries. There's our timeline. That's going to give us our waypoints, if you will, along the way to see if we are on target for reaching that goal. And the way we get there is by taking the Vision Zero strategy, following the safe system element, and having all of our partners engaged and tracking how we achieve that over time. There are a number of highlights in the action plan on actions that are going to be going forward here at MetroPlan from an ongoing planning standpoint. So we are still looking at those and determining exactly how those play out. But that's basically our work program for the coming years when it comes to safety. And then we have a number of performance metrics so we can get an idea of how we are doing as we move forward through the years. And we have numerous technical appendices. So depending on what your role is within the Vision Zero planning effort, there's an appendix for you. So because we don't want to put it all into the main plan document, there are numerous details that different individuals will want to reference along the way. We are also looking to submit for another Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. Deadline for this is the end of August. And we're looking to continue with our public-facing educational efforts, doing some advanced work on crash data analytics, road safety audits, and then also consolidation of those local plans, and continuing that work to make sure that we're not leaving anybody behind when it comes to every jurisdiction throughout the area. And we are still welcoming any jurisdictions that have additional ideas to strengthen this application. So get your staff to get with us, and we will consider those additions as well. So our timeline, so we are wrapping up this plan overview. Within the next couple of weeks, we will be sending out a draft of this plan to all of your staff, to all of our committee members, and we are looking for feedback due back to us by August 9th. So then we can get this before our committees in August and back before you for a final adoption. That's on the September 11th meeting. And that concludes my presentation on behalf of you. Take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Commissioner Moore?
I appreciate all your work on the engineering side. I think for us in Orange County, we still struggle with the enforcement side, knowing that we don't always have the enforcement that we would like. Does that impact engineering decisions?
Well, then they need to go with hand in hand. You know, if we make an engineering change, we need to make sure that law enforcement understands what those changes are so that they can be effective. We're hoping that we can continue to engage law enforcement with an understanding that here's our high injury network. What can we do collectively, perhaps with short-term improvements as well as enhanced enforcement to attack them before we can get to the bigger lift efforts of major changes in a corridor.
I had success on a high injury area of getting the sector to provide some more speed enforcement. And they've been very responsive in that area, but I just know that they're stretched and don't get out there. So I was just curious if that requires us to design any differently, knowing that we're lacking deputies in order to perform that function, or if there's any other technologies, coming that might help us alleviate the need for so many deputies.
Thank you, Commissioner Aribi.
Thank you very much. Mike, I appreciate this and the Vision 2050 and what DOT has done and even what Orange County has done. One of the things that really does not sit well with me is that we hear this term easy pickings, right? So let's put sidewalks, let's do this in areas that aren't really highly pedestrian anyways, so that we get to kind of check mark, we did this. But what's happening is that we're missing areas where there's high pedestrian, where you've got a bus stop and people are going to get on and off. And one of the issues I have is that I keep getting told, well, we can't just put a sidewalk because it's a ditch. Now we have to do drainage and then we can do the sidewalk. So what could be a $50,000 sidewalk is now a $2.7 million sidewalk because of what's required. But I think it's very important as we walk this line of public safety and Vision Zero, that we don't just go and say, well, we've done all these check marks, but we're actually making a change. And so I know for me, and I'm sure all of us as commissioners have also, it's impossible for everyone to know where everything is. So, these half sidewalks, like, let's make sure they're connected, all these things. But I think it's important that sometimes we really evaluate the need and the real need when you're talking about pedestrian safety. And we're not just able to come back and say, well, we laid down 20 more miles of sidewalk, but was it really effective sidewalk? Because whenever you see people on a road, I think we have one area, and I don't think one of the commissioners here, that essentially is going to cost us $20 million because of lack of right of way and all these things. It's set to be done by 2026. But there are literally, it's a bus stop, it's a street between two bus stops where the road's not even wide enough and it's ditches. So people walk on the road. You see people pushing their baby strollers on the road. That's when you talk about effective vision zero. So just as a note, take that, because I don't think it's good for us to say on paper we did things, but how effective is what the project we're doing really taking place? So just.
Well, I think that's where the whole data-driven approach, I think, is what helps us to get past that. You know, where are the most serious pedestrian crashes happening? They're happening on streets that have complete sidewalks and often have, you know, pretty good infrastructure at the intersections as well. But there are other issues at play. Not to downplay the need for sidewalks, but or any particular spot. But again, following the data, particularly when it comes to pedestrian crashes, as far as where's the exposure, where's the need, and where the crash is happening. I think that gets us to
And as
a
a
balanced
follow-up,
approach here.
Commissioner Zimbower used to say this, it's also human behavior, you know? Are the crashes happening because now crossings become, you know, it's your normal background when you're driving, you know, and that's what's really scary, because we were just talking about OBT, you know, and seeing what we see. And there's times that people just roll through, even though you're going on a speed bump, it's just like, you're so used to it now that it becomes so familiar. You know, because there's 7 of them. That's how familiar I am with them. So I know, you know, okay, 4 down, 3 more to go, you know, so, you know, that's the human behavior side too, is always an issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, so as a follow-up to that, I think, I mean, I noticed this, I'm not a traffic engineer, and I'm fortunate to have some incredible people that are trained in that capacity that, you know, come out and look at some of our issues. And I try to kind of understand a little better about the approach. And one of the things that I noticed was that the design doesn't often follow the pattern, right? So we'll see where people are crossing, and human beings will go to the shortest possible path. And then I hear experts in the field talk about, oh, we should try to push them up to the next cross and get them. And then we wonder why they get hit with a shortcut, but they're trying to make time, just like the traffic's trying to make time. And we seem to accommodate the cars. We don't follow the pedestrians and say, okay, what is the fastest way they're going to go? How are they going to shortcut this? And how do we get in front of that? Instead of trying to gate them into something that's potentially never going to be effective, because they're going to always go with their shortest route. And I know that is just, it's a mindset, right? We have not necessarily been focused on Vision Zero and looking for those pedestrian vulnerabilities and I would say even other car vulnerabilities. But, you know, hopefully we can start to think about those things differently. And so, you know, looking at the sidewalk projects, looking at these points of contact and looking and actually watching and saying, look, these people are shortcutting right here. This has got to be where we put that investment, instead of trying to shove them to the next, you know, block up.
Yeah. In fact, that's actually part of what we're doing. We are looking at what we found, for example, I think I mentioned last time, was that half of Link's transit boardings are on our high entry network. Right? That means there's a huge amount of pedestrian crossing activity on our high entry network. So finding out what are the stops that are closest to crash locations. We don't necessarily know in the pedestrian crash data whether that pedestrian was really going to or from a bus stop, but it's a reasonable assumption. So we can identify where do we need to put in enhanced crossing facilities. And so we're already on that path to identify those opportunities.
Any other questions from the board? Are there any hands raised?
No hand raised.
Okay, thank you. Mike, I have one quick question. I know Vision Zero has been around for quite some time, just it hasn't been around with us. What are the lessons learned both domestically and internationally? Because this has been around since the 90s.
Right.
Can we get a copy of those lessons learned? Are they available for us to look at?
Yeah, well, I believe there's there's some national websites that look at that. You know, I haven't really looked at the European models because their context is so different from ours. I think it's more.
But there's still lessons learned there.
Right. And
even though their
right
transportation and their models in their downtowns are different, there's still lessons learned no matter where you go.
Right.
It'd be nice to look at those to see what they are. If we can do that, that'd be great. If not, I understand.
Commissioner, if I may, I think that's a great kind of plug for the Wheel of Achievement Dan Burden speaker series. Gary had mentioned him, a lot of his research and kind of what he's going to be talking about is going to be around blue zones, but also his research with Hawaii, which was doing kind of that European Vision Zero takeaways. So a good portion of that actually will be part of the Vision Zero speaker series that's happening Thursday morning. But we're certainly taking your comments, remarks to heart, and we'll kind of.
One of the reasons I bring it up is I actually lived in one of the countries that actually spearheaded this in the 90s. And so I know there's lessons learned there.
Right.
We'll now move on to item B, which is presentation and a preview of the tip.
Morning again. This morning I'll be presenting a preview of the fiscal year 2025, the 2029 tip. In your agenda packets, you will find a link to the draft document for your review. And the new tip will be coming back during the June-July board and committee cycle as an action item. The purpose of the tip is to identify all federal and state funded transportation projects for the next 5 years. The tip includes locally funded projects and Central Florida Expressway projects for informational purposes. And the tip is updated annually, and it is consistent with the adopted prioritized project list, which was adopted in July of 2023. Projects in the tip are categorized into 11 sections. These 11 sections are listed on the screen. They remain unchanged from last year. And we have 513 projects within the 11 sections of the tip. And over the course of this presentation, I'm going to go over a few of those projects. Start with the National Highway System. This section includes projects on the Interstate Highway System, Strategic Intermodal System, and National Highway Freight Network. In our region, this mainly consists of projects along I-4. Within the tip, we have 19 projects with $1.9 billion in funding. And a few projects we would like to highlight include, first, we have one of the Moving Florida Forward projects. This will add additional lanes in Osceola County along I-4 from west of County Road 532 to east of County Road 522. Next, in Orange County, we have a project that will be adding lanes on I-4 from east of County Road 522 to west of State Road 528. Also in Orange County, we have the Darrell Carter Parkway interchange. And finally, in Seminole County, we have a project that will be adding lanes on I-4 from 1 mile east of State Road 434 to east of 1792. Next, we have the State Highway System. This includes capacity improvements, complete streets, safety operations, and ITS investments on the State Highway System. Within this section of the tip, we have 68 projects with $844 million in funding. And a few projects we would like to highlight include in the eastern part of Orange County, we have a project that will add lanes and rehab pavement on State Road 50 from Chuliota Road to State Road 520. In Kissimmee area, we have an intersection improvement project, and that's at John Young Parkway and Pleasant Hill Road. In the Four Corners area of Osceola County, we have an intersection improvement project at Fooney Steed Road, and the intersections are Linsfield Boulevard and Formosa Gardens Boulevard. And then we have a truck parking site in Osceola County. Next, we'll move into complete streets. These projects consist of roadway, bicycle, and pedestrian intersection improvements that improve safety and accessibility for all users. Within the tip, we have 12 MetroPlan Orlando funded projects with approximately $45 million in funding. And a few projects we would like to highlight include in the Audubon Park, Baldwin Park area of Orlando, we have the Virginia Drive, Forest Avenue, Corinne Drive, and that's from State Road 528 to Bennett Road. Next in Apopka, we have Rock Springs Road from north of the Publix entrance to Lester Road. In the Kissimmee area, we have Buenaventura Boulevard from Simpson Road to Osceola Parkway. And in Castleberry, we have Winter Park Drive from Red Bug Lake Road to State Road 434. Next, we have Transportation Systems Management and Operations, also known as TSMO. These projects, they're used to innovate strategies or leverage existing technology deployments to improve safety and travel time reliability. Within the tip, we have 16 MetroPlan Orlando funded projects with 37 million in funding. And a few projects include the Orlando citywide pedestrian traffic signals, the Orange County traffic signal cabinet upgrade, the Carrier Drive, Mandarin Drive Tismo bundle, and an arterial traffic management system at Boggy Creek Road from Simpson Road to Narcoosee Road. Next, we'll move on to bicycle and pedestrian. These projects include standalone bicycle and pedestrian improvement projects, including sidewalks and trails. Within the tip, we have 25 MetroPlan Orlando funded projects with 52 million in funding. And a few projects we would like to highlight include in Pine Hills, we have the Pine Hills Trail Phase 2 from Bonnie Brae Circle to Clarkona Ocoee Road. In the Baldwin Park East Orlando area, we have the Little Econ Trail Phase 3 from Baldwin Park Street to Richard Crotty Parkway. And then finally, we have 4 phases of the Shingle Creek Trail. The first phase is in Orange County. We have the Kirkman Trail section, which is from Old Winter Garden Road to Raleigh Street. In Kissimmee, we have Phase 2B, which is the Yates Connector. In Kissimmee, we also have Phase 2C, which is the County Line Connector. And then in Orange County, we have Phase 4, which is from Alhambra Drive to Old Winter Garden Road. Next, we have Safe Routes to School. This includes sidewalk projects within close proximity of a school. Within the tip, we have 3 projects and 1.1 million in funding. In Kissimmee, we have Phase 2 of a sidewalk gap project at Deerwood Elementary School. In St. Cloud, we have Phase 1 of a sidewalk project at Hickory Tree Elementary School. And in Kissimmee, we have Phase 2 of a sidewalk gap project, and those are at Boggy Creek Elementary and Parkway Middle School. So we'll move on to transit and commuter rail. These are 2 separate sections in the tip. The transit and transportation disadvantage section of the tip includes operations and capital funding for links. And the tip includes approximately 453 million in funding. And the commuter rail section of the tip includes Sunrail projects. And this includes approximately 657 million in funding. So as you can see, over the next 5 years, we have a lot of transportation projects going on in the region. In the tip, we have a total of 280 federal, state, and turnpike funded projects, approximately 5.4 billion in funding programs. This number does not include projects provided by Central Florida Expressway Authority, which is investing billions into their roadway in our region. This also does not include the locally funded projects submitted by our local partners, which are for informational purposes. And the pie chart on the screen breaks down this funding based on tip section. Addition, you probably heard me talk about certain projects that are MetroPlan Orlando funded. Within the tip, we have a total of 59 projects that have MetroPlan Orlando funding, approximately 185 million in funding. And the chart breaks it down by kind of class. So we have roads and highways, we have safety, we have bicycle and pedestrian, and we have transit. So a few next steps. We just received back our comments from FDOT on our draft on Monday. So over the next few days, I'll be addressing those, just a few minor edits to make. Next Tuesday, we will be hosting our TIP virtual public meeting. And then after that is done, I'll be preparing the final document for adoption. So our TIP virtual public meeting, it's going to be next Tuesday, June 18th. The time is from 11:30 to 1, and it'll be hosted virtually on Zoom. And for more information and to register, you can visit the MetroPlan Orlando website. One last thing, at MetroPlan Orlando, we're always trying to improve our process and how we visualize our information. So this year we removed the web map from our webpage, and instead we now have this TIP online viewer. This kind of allows you to more easily search for projects. You can zoom into your neighborhood and see what projects are going on in your area. You can also use the filters on the left-hand side of the screen. So you can search by tip section, you can search by a specific project number, a specific funding source, or just a year of funding. And as you zoom in on the map, the projects on the left side of the screen will decrease to just show strictly the projects that are kind of within your view. If you click on a project line, a window will appear that shows you pretty much exactly the information that's provided in the tip document. So exactly how it's displayed. And if you're a member of the public and you wanted to make a comment, at the top right corner of that insert window, there's a comment feature, and you can simply submit your comment right then and there. Also, at the top right-hand corner of the page, there's a full list of projects if you went to the project tab, just because not every project has a line associated with it on the map. And if you wanted to go back and look at a specific tip amendment and see what exactly the changes were, you can go to the plan revision tab and you can click on it and see, in April of last year, we made this amendment and this was the funding that was added to a specific project. That will conclude the presentation of the draft fiscal year 2025 to 2029 tip. I'd like to open the floor for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the board? Do you have any hands raised?
No hands raised.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Move on to the next presentation. What is the presentation and a preview of the PPL?
Hey, good morning, board. Slade Downs, transportation planner here at MetroPlan Orlando, and like Vice Chair just said, I'll be walking you through a preview of our annual prioritized project list update. So a little bit of background: the PPL kind of acts as a bridge between our Metropolitan Transportation Plan and the TIP that Jason just walked you through. Where the TIP is kind of the next 5 years of funded projects and project phases. The PPL is kind of like the on-deck circle for what we imagine we can start moving into the funded areas once those funding buckets become available. This project is updated annually. And this is just the preview so that you can provide feedback on those projects. Some things that were taken into consideration in the creation of the PPL. It stays consistent with the MTP, where we've already established needs, cost feasibility, and cost forecasts. It's consistent with the policy that you all have set as the board, based on performance-based processes and the prioritization processes. Project eligibility is also outlined within this document. For example, some funding sources come with certain requirements and strings, so certain projects may qualify for certain funding sources and not others. And the end goal of the PPL is to advance high quality projects and project phases moving forward. So here is a diagram of the different priority lists. Each has a informational kind of one sheet rundown within the PPL, which is linked in your agenda packets. And I'll give you a brief overview of each of these in the next couple slides. So first off, we have our interstate highway and strategic intermodal system list. This includes new truck parking areas and I-4, including our Moving Florida Forward projects. You can find the one sheet for this on page 12 of the PPL and the full list of projects on page 25. Next, we have our key priorities for the state highway system. This is just the top 5, but I believe there's about 70 or so projects on that full list. You can find the informational one sheet on page 13 and the full list on page 26. Next, we have our key priorities for the off-system construction assistance program for local projects of regional significance. You can find the one sheet for this on page 14 and the full list broken out on page 32. Next, we have our priority phases for the complete streets list. The projects on the left side have been funded for design and are seeking funds for construction. And the projects on the right are seeking funds for design. You can find the full list on page 33 and the informational sheet on page 15. Next, we have our TISMO list. These are the priority phases, all of which have had design funded, and they are all seeking construction funding in the PPL. You can find the one sheet for that on page 17 and the full list on page 35. Next, we have our pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure projects list. This includes active transportation projects as well as statewide Sun Trail projects. You can find the one sheet for this on page 20 and the full list on page 38. Next up is our school mobility and safe routes to school list. You can find the one sheet for this on page 21 and the full project list on page 40. Next up, we have our critical sidewalk gap bundles. The information on this program can be found on page 22, and the full list broken out is on page 41. And last but certainly not least, we have our regional transit projects list. Key priorities including Sunrail and Lynx projects around the region. You can find out more about this program on page 23 and the full list of projects on page 50. So that is the preview of what's in the PPL. I encourage you to please take a look. Prior to the board meeting, this went before all of our advisory committees, and we've reached out to all of your staffs to get their feedback on specific projects within the list. That feedback is in the process of being incorporated into the final draft, which will come back before you at your next board meeting. We'll also go back in front of all of the advisory committees to get one last round of input and approval before coming to all of you. And with that, happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Questions from the board, Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quick, it's not really a question regarding the lineup, but specifically of the truck parking items that are in Osceola and Seminole. I just wanted to try and find out any information, and y'all may have already discussed this and I missed it, but specific to noise control and air pollution, both of those sites. What are the measures going to be taken to prevent, to contain? Obviously, we're talking about have semi trucks running nonstop. So how do we, I know, and I know the federal government's just been overruled and we don't want clean air in states, but it'd be nice to know what measures we're taking for those areas around those truck parking. And that's all I have.
Sure, yeah, we'd be happy to get you more information on that.
Any other questions from the board? Are there any hands raised? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Now move on to public comments. This is for items that are not, and this is just items general in nature, not on the agenda. Do we have any written requests? Lisa?
I have not received any written requests and I don't see any hands raised online.
All right, thank you very much. This time we go to board comments, but before we go to the actual board members, I'd like to ask Commissioner Uribe that she was at the FDOT Transportation Steering Committee and the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board, if you can report to us about those meetings.
Thank you very much, Vice Chairman. Good morning, everyone, and my apologies for being late this morning. I did handle the TDLCB meeting. We met on Thursday, May 16th. Our action items included approval of our February TDLCB meeting minutes, approval of the minor update to the Transit Development Services Plan, and also approval of the annual rate calculation worksheet. Our presentations included an update on the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, a review of MetroPlan Orlando's organizational public participation plan and MTP public participation plan. We received the results of the 2023 Community Transportation Coordinator Evaluation and a CTC update. I do want to add, we had a very robust conversation with our board, which was so encouraging about being a little bit more proactive on some of these issues that are coming forward. We have an incredible board, and I know you all are very busy, but you're hearing from the individuals who are actually engaged in all of the TDLCB services. The next TDLCB meeting is scheduled for August 8th, 2024 at 10 a.m. Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, this concludes my report, and thank you for a moment. I had the honor, as many of you know, I've been appointed by Secretary Perdue to the 2055 Florida Transportation Plan. We had our first meeting in St. Pete, and it was amazing. It was, I mean, first of all, everybody in FDOT, I don't know who was running Tallahassee because they were all in St. Pete, but it's only 16 members, and we're actually having real engagement and impact on what the state is going to look like for the next 30 years. And you have to be on your toes. You have to be super engaged. And I get to participate with Assistant Secretary Holland. But more than anything, Secretary Perdue must have been with us for about an hour and a half or 2 hours, which is very, very engaging. And what's really nice is that there's representatives from port, from airports, from trains, from environment. Everyone is seated at the table. I'm actually very humbled to be representing the Central Florida corridor. But I want to make sure that Gary gets this information out. We are having a community engagement plan, a CEP. So basically everything that happens in our meetings and webinar workshops will be started to be available statewide. So if it's okay with all of you, I'm going to make sure that Gary shares this, because you know, at first I thought it was going to be one of these things where I show up and just agree with what they tell us. Not so at all. And that's very refreshing in our roles, because they want direct impact. I mean, even on the community plan, we are giving our feedback on what we want out there and how we want the conversation to go. And the best quote I'm going to say from Secretary Perdue that day was, we all don't have to agree. We just have to agree to like it a little bit. You know, because we know we all have different, you know, I mean, obviously ports have a very driven thing. Trains have a very, you know, driven thing. We've got big trucks, semi trucks represented on this. So when I talk about a very diverse aspect, and then you've got leadership from Florida League of Cities and the Florida Association of Counties are on this board. So we're at the table, and I look forward. I'm very excited for the next 18 months or 17 now, and continue to update us. And also I encourage you all to, and I've encouraged Gary and his team to share things that I get to take back, because I'm the only person from Central Florida. So when you look at the whole regions and it's only 16 of us, it's a slim picking. So thank you very much, and honored to be there and say MetroPlan Orlando. So thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any general comments from the board members? Mayor?
Thank you, Chairman. In the Sunday Wall Street Journal, just this past Sunday, interesting article about Google and a new program called Greenlight. And they have a 14-city pilot program, which requires no new hardware. The data comes from new and internet-connected vehicles or from navigational apps on the driver's phones, and it could yield up to a 30% reduction in stop-and-go traffic at intersections. So I think it's an interesting program. I know that as this goes forward, I definitely want to have maybe some kind of a workshop on it, or at least bring it to the board, kind of what you can find out, Gary and your team, to bring that forward as a discussion item.
Mayor, we will do that. We talked earlier before the meeting, and we're going to dig out the Sunday Wall Street Journal and take a look at that. And we'll be following up.
Any other comments from board members? Any hands raised?
Before we adjourn, and there was a time delay with Zoom, but we do have a hand raised for public comment.
Okay.
And it is Miss Joanne Canellis.
Okay. If you could put her on the. And I'd like to apologize, Joanne, for not recognizing you at the appropriate time. So we'll give you that opportunity now. But thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Joanne Canellis. I live in 324 Plymouth Avenue, Lake Mary, Florida, 32746. The reason why I didn't go there physically because of the bad weather, so I had to come here virtually. And we need 24 hours bus and train service, mass transit for everyone, please. And we need one in Lake Mary, Country Club Road, 2 bus stop for the Estella Road, 1 northbound and southbound. And we need the one in the Oviedo Boulevard where I swim at, please. And even one over at the Lake Mary Pet School too, when I walked at. Okay? We need it on weekends, holidays, and nighttime so no one would be stranded. Because right now, this transportation is, the transportation for quality is very, very poor right now. You need the improvement right there, please.
All right, thank you for your
Okay?
input.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Thank you. Bye.
We'll get to you in a second. Just give me 1 minute. Anybody else has a hand raised, Lisa?
No more hands raised.
Okay. Do you want to complete one task at a time?
Thank you. Just want to follow up on the comment. I'm aware of that article. I've read it. I've shared it with the traffic engineers in our district, and we are going to have some more discussion on it. So we are aware of that.
And just so that you know, Mayor, Tom O'Hanlon has emailed that article to a lot of people. Okay, so next board meeting, what time does it start?
10 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock in the morning. Any other comments? Meeting's now adjourned. Thank you.